Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murderer Talking News. Before we get started, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell if you'd like notifications whenever we have new uploads. So, today is a very important day. Today, we're going to hear more on the autopsy report for Gabby Petito, the 22-year-old out of Florida who was a travel blogger, went missing at the end of August. So it's supposed to be sometime soon here, so around 2:30 Eastern. And I kind of want to talk about, before this starts, what the parents from both sides may be going through today as they await the report. Well, I have to say that the Petitos, that family most likely already has heard of what happened. And so that's where you see a lot of that anger when they're interviewed lately stemming from. That speculation, of course. So, and as for Brian Laundrie's family, what can they expect? Do they know? Well, if the Petito family know, probably there is a chance that they would know as well. But if they didn't, it's going to be probably just as horrifying or more horrifying for them to find out that there's a possibility that their son is involved with something that could be very horrendous. Many people believe that the Laundrie family really don't care. But, we don't know. So a lot of people expect that there are several outcomes. So you have the rumors that were going around saying that she might have been shot. And then you have the rumors going around that maybe even multiple times, and that they had seen a weapon on a rock beside the van, which was actually recorded by another travel blogger couple. Whereas I'm not certain that is the case. I really didn't even cover that because I just really didn't support it. We did see that her sandals sitting outside the door of the van. But I'm really not certain if there was any type of weapon out there. Now, does he carry one? There's a possibility, but really we don't know. So let's talk about the fact that Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito did fight. Their friends have witnessed it. And one friend said that they would even take space from one another. She would come to her best friend's house in Florida, hang out with her whenever her and Brian were having issues. So the last argument that they had, the couple was alone and on this travel trip in this white van, headed to Yellowstone, supposedly after visiting Wyoming, another park in Wyoming, sorry. So the couple admits that during the argument that Brian gets in the truck, he has her phone, he has the keys to the van, her book bags left outside of the van, and he told her to go cool down, that they needed to have time to cool down. Gabby admitted that she did not want to relax, that she thought she was fine. And this is something I want to point out. So this couple often has a timeout whenever they're arguing. And Brian is very persistent about taking a timeout. And what's the reasoning for that? And I suspect that he deals with he has an anger problem, possibly, in that speculation. And this is why he has, insisted that they take space. Well, when a couple's traveling alone in a van, it's going to be nearly difficult to take space from one another if they get into an argument in the middle of nowhere. And I often wonder if that argument, they weren't able to get that space that they needed, and then it turned into a nightmare. So while we wait on this autopsy report of Gabby, looking for answers, no matter what it says, the investigators still have to prove that Brian had something to do with that. And right now, that isn't happening. They have a suspicion that there's a possibility that he was the major role player in the disappearance of Gabby. But in the United States, you have to have or prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm sorry I couldn't get that out. You can't just say, it fits, so therefore you're guilty. But the autopsy report basically assuming or speculating that he is the one responsible for whatever happened to Gabby, whatever it says, is going to kind of lay out what happened somewhat. So John Walsh kind of give a hint that he believed that Brian Laundrie beat her. The parents being showing this very a different type of anger than you usually see during their interviews says a lot more as well. So the autopsy report is strangulation, and so here's the video on that, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Sorry about the audio issue. I'm Dr. Brent Blue, Teton County, Wyoming coroner. After a detailed investigation by our forensic pathologist, our anthropologist, and local law enforcement, with assistance from the FBI, the Teton County Coroner's Office is following the following verdict. In the manner of death of Gabrielle Lenora Petito, we find the cause and manner to be death by strangulation, and manner is homicide. By Wyoming state statute, only the cause and manner of death are released. Their autopsy findings and photographs and that sort of material is not released by state statute. And I'll be glad to entertain some questions at this time.
Hi, Brian. This is Alex with the News and Guide. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm curious whether you're able to pinpoint a date of death and when, and if you know whether or when Gabby's remains will be returned to her family.
The remains have been returned to the mortuary here, and the mortuary is dealing with the family at this time as far as the disposition of the remains. As far as the time of death, we are estimating 3 to 4 weeks from the time that the body was found. That is actually determined more by law enforcement folks than than our office.
Miss Vivian, you are able to ask your question.
What's the question? I didn't hear a question.
Okay, it's John Walsh from In Pursuit with John Walsh on Discovery ID. Dr. Blue, thank you for your time. I think everybody in the world believes that Brian Laundrie killed Gabby. With your extensive work on the body, are you sure that it's Brian Laundrie? And will the FBI issue a nationwide homicide warrant now that they know the cause of death?
We are only tasked with the determination of cause and manner of death. Who committed the homicide is up to law enforcement, and I cannot answer the question about the FBI.
So why would John Walsh ask him? Okay, anyways, he's already spread rumors enough that he thought that she was beat. But, she probably might have been hit a few times, but based off of August 12th, it showed that he reached immediately for her face and probably did that to keep from grabbing her neck. But, yeah, I suspected it would be strangulation. A few people did. But there was a lot of rumors going around, and it's very sad. So it basically says a little bit more, but not enough to pin it 100% on Brian Laundrie. It's a really sad outcome, but it was something that we expected. So you would think that the Petito family can move forward, and this actually takes them several steps backwards, and will have their motions on a I was going to say Ferris wheel, but most likely a Himalaya. And the sad truth is, most strangulations are women coming out of domestic violent relationships. Again, this helps us put together our puzzle that most likely Brian was dealing with anger issues, and this is why he tried to get space between the two, and instead of sending her off, what he should have done is seek help for the anger issues, which he didn't. That's based on my research on what's available at this time. So there was a study done on, there was 100 cases, and 90% of those cases, the sad part, there were 50% of those cases actually with children that were present. And then 90% of those 100 cases were previous domestic violent cases. So it's far too common of story in my opinion. So guys, anyways, focus in on the visible signs of strangulation. When police officers are actually called out for cases where one is injured or deceased, 62% of the police officers that go out there, they don't see any sign of strangulation. So few of the questions to the doctor who evaluated Gabby was what took so long. And I was happy to hear his answer. And it was that he was doing his job. He was taking his time and making sure that they knew exactly what happened to Gabby. Now remember, Gabby's remains were out there nearly 3 weeks. That's what they're thinking. So they had a lot of hard work to do. Now, when I was talking about officers going out there and looking at cases like this, and they'll look at a body and they say actually 22% of these cases will show a minor mark. So these are things that when it's kind of fresh, so they're looking for like red marks, bruises, or rope burns, even hand marks. So they're able to take whatever they do find on the victim and do what they can to see if it relates to who they suspect could be involved with that case. So my speculation is they probably found some lower facial injury and as well as neck. I don't know if it ended up being enough to affect her spine or not. So you must remember that Gabby was an itty bitty tiny little woman. And it's important that I share this, and I know you shouldn't share this kind of stuff, but I want to make it known, in case Brian's watching, that if he had his hands around her neck, and it was him, he had to look in her face and watch her fade away. And after doing that, he returns home with her van, has no remorse, hangs out with family, goes camping. Some suspect that these are goodbyes because he knows he's going to go on a run, and then disappears without a trace. So a lot of people are very angry because that is a coward act, because most people, if you love someone, that is, and you, even if it was in the heat of a moment, you would have remorse and be sorry for what you did. And you would know the right thing to do is to turn yourself in and to face the consequences of your actions. If not for yourself, at least for the person that you supposedly loved with everything you had. He didn't only backstab the woman that he supposedly loved. He's backstabbed his whole entire family, putting them through this horrible nightmare, whether they're involved or not involved. It was very selfish to do so. So at this point, the Petito family has to visualize what happened to their daughter. And the steps they took forward are now 10 steps backwards. Devastating day if they didn't know. If they did know. Were they speaking to John Walsh, or was he just really manipulating the public with what he knew? Guys, if you're a fan of him, I'm sorry, but I just feel like sometimes celebrities they forget why they're there and the purpose in shows like this. It suddenly turns into ratings instead of finding or helping the families that are going through these horrific events. So, anyways, all we can do now is hope that the family can find peace somewhere, and that the Laundrie family are able, if they know where Brian is, to convince him to do the right thing. Far too many stories like this. Guys, please share below if this fit what you suspected you would hear from the doctor. And let's send their family lots of blessings and hugs, because they got a lot more to go through. They still haven't found this fugitive on the run. So I'm going without a script here, and I'm also kind of upset about this, so my mind's going a little blank today, guys. So where is Brian Laundrie? So first, if we can at least figure out if the parents are truthful or not, we would know where to begin. Does anybody know when the Laundrie family hired that attorney? That in itself is enough to tell you whether or not the parents might know where Brian Laundrie is. So at this point, a lot of people have questions as to will there be some updated charges or upgraded charges. And of course, now that the autopsy's finished, it's whether or not they have found any DNA evidence, fingerprints, anything to attach the person of interest to this slaying. So right now, usually if they know where this person is, if they have something, arrest is, soon to come. At least with the cases that I've followed so far. But since they cannot find him, well, that changes the game. So if they did find a way to say, we suspect Brian had something to do with this, you're really not going to hear as much as you would if they knew where someone was, right? I guess we'll find out. I have to close this video out. I'm not going to be able to see what the attorney says for the Laundrie family, but it's going to be interesting to see what they had to say. Is it going to be 3 sentences long, cold as it usually is? And will this change their outlook on how they thought about this case? What about the people, if there's someone helping him? Maybe he's staying with a friend or family member. Maybe he's not camping or hiking. Will that change how they feel about this man being in their home? Because if he hurts the person supposedly he was going to marry and spend the rest of his life with, who's next? Don't forget, guys, we have tons more cases out there where the people remain missing. Kira Coles, Jasmine Robinson, Dulce, Suzanne, Aisha, Monkey. Ridiculously a long list, and it gets much longer. Also, guys, please, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe now. Also, hit the thumbs up button, hit the notification bell, and don't forget to comment how you feel about this case. Sending love out to the Petito family today, because they're going to need it. And I'll see you guys soon.